Calling the roll, Mr. Schramm.
Here.
Mr. Hairston. Mr. Hairston is absent. Mr. Greenspan.
Here.
Mr. Germana.
Here.
Ms. Simon.
Here.
We have a quorum, and I like the record to reflect that Mr. Miller is in attendance.
Welcome, Mr. Miller. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from the July 20th, 2015 meeting? Oh, excuse me. Is there anybody? There are a lot of people in the audience, which we ordinarily don't have, so I apologize on that. Is there anybody signed in for comments in regards to the agenda itself?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is there an opportunity for everybody to have read the minutes from the 20th? Been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Historically, we don't have to do a formal excusal for committees, do we? No, I didn't think so. But Anthony's excused. The chair will at least recognize that for the minutes purposes. Could we please read the first item into the record?
Resolution 2015-0150, authorizing an Economic Development Fund redevelopment and modernization loan in the amount not to exceed $650,000 to Keystone Tailored Manufacturing for the benefit of a project located at 4600 Tiedemann Road, Brooklyn.
Is there someone here to speak on behalf of this issue?
Yes, sir. Nathan Kelly, Director of Development. All right. Council President, or Council Chair, and Council members, before us today is a proposal to support W. Diamond. We got here, this has been a long road. About 5 years ago, same site, there was a company called Hugo Boss, which had indicated that they were intending to close shop. And with a lot of initiative from the public sector, that decision was reversed for another 5 years. The 160 garment workers at that site were retained for another 5 years by Hugo Boss. And it was a success story of the public sector taking a leadership role and encouraging a business to maintain a presence in Brooklyn. 5 years later, about third quarter, fourth quarter of last year, that story seemed to have another chapter, which was that Hugo Boss was definitely leaving this time, and that in April they would close shop. But for some significant work on behalf of the City of Brooklyn, and their Economic Development Director, Fran Miglerino, is here to represent the city. Jobs Ohio, Senator Brown, and the county were able to tell a story of not just retaining those 160 skilled workers, those garment workers, but also getting them to commit to growth and setting the stage for a site that could be even future growth beyond what's there. So we're now on offense on this site. I'm going to ask Fran Miglerino to be present for any questions that you might have on behalf of the city. And Arnold Lockett, my colleague from the Department of Development, will be able to speak into the granular details about the loan package that we've provided. But the gist is that this company, Keystone Tailored Manufacturing, will produce an all-American made garment here in the United States for a brand called Hart Schaefer Marks and a couple other brands that are American-made apparel. Those suits will be made by garment workers that are hard to find, a talent that is hard to train, and part of the success story and the reason why Brooklyn was a potential site was because of the skilled workforce that existed and the challenges that Keystone and their partners that also make Hart Schaefer Marks had identifying that labor supply where they are in the Chicagoland area. And so they endeavored to grow here. The site is a $4 million redevelopment, completely retooling all the machinery that's in the site, and they're going to use about 1/3 of the site, making the balance of that site available for growth opportunities, potentially incorporating some of their suppliers to be more closely located to them, and then also for a Hugo Boss had a outlet store. They're also going to have an outlet store for Hart Schaefer Marks, but there'll be normal hours so that Councilman Gallagher can make it there. The proposal that we have is not insignificant. It's a $650,000 loan with $150,000 of that forgivable if they meet certain benchmarks. The city of Brooklyn has also put up a $150,000 tax rebate for their growth. Jobs Ohio is also putting forward $400,000 in grant funds because of the potential growth at this site for that labor need. We'll have first position on the building, which is significant, and the potential here to grow is something that we're particularly proud of. Another thing we're proud of is that they're going to, one of the things that the workers wanted, I've heard anecdotally, was used to be a German company, and so they'd fly a German flag on the site. And now there's a big American flag on that site. The company's been very strong to the workers that are there, helping them getting retrained, putting $850,000 into training, and also assumed an $8 million pension liability in order to keep those folks there. Wow. Something that they probably didn't have to do, but it underscores the importance of the skilled labor that's on site. And if they were to go, if this company were to fold, or if it were not to be backfilled with Keystone, we'd lose those workers, and they'd never come back. And we wouldn't be able to backfill that spot with these kind of companies. So with that, I want to make available, I should also say that the CEO of the company, Ken Ragland, was before our loan committee. It was very impressive, and he can't make it. When I asked him to attend, he said he would love to present, but for the fact that he'll be in Milan today. So he invited you there, and I said I didn't think that that was going to happen. So I wanted you to know that he wishes that he were here. I think we have a letter from him expressing that, and but everything that I've said is consistent with what he's shared with us in other public meetings.
And I'd like the record reflect that our Vice President, Parnell Jones, is here attending in the meeting. Thank you. Is there going to be a presentation in regards to product, process, anything like that that's going on in addition? And I have a copy of the Hart Schaefer and Marks brochure. There's only one up here, so I should send this around?
Just the one. Okay. All new equipment. I mean, I can go into anecdotal information about how all of the equipment that was in the building is now out. There's new equipment will go in. A lot of it is computerized. The difference is that the product that was getting made when it was a Hugo Boss facility was much more a linear manufacturing process. They were very much the same garment again and again and again and again. This product will have a significant amount of what's called made to measure, where they're custom-made suits within certain parameters. So the pieces are tailored, and so there has to be significant upskilling. The other thing is that the demand for this kind of product is such that the Hart Schaefer Marks brand is expecting to export 40,000 suits to mainland China this year. A complete reversal from the way that a lot of the other market has gone when it comes to making these sorts of garments.
Well, the brand historically has been one of the, and the two of us will have a little disagreement as far as the middle name, but I was always told it was Hart Schaefer and Marks. So
I'm sure you're right.
Oh, I don't know about that. I just know it was always out of my price range. It's the high end creme de la creme of brands out there, so we can be very proud that they're going to be making that right here in Cleveland, Ohio. So I think it's terrific in that respect. So anybody have any questions at this point in time before we get to the rest of the presenters for Mr. Kelly? Questions? Mr. Miller? Okay. Mr. Miller, Mr. Greenspan, anybody else? Okay, Mr. Miller first. Mr. Kelly.
Since you say the equipment has been, the old equipment has been moved out, I presume there's a time where the employees aren't working, and I'm wondering how long that stretch is, and whether you're expecting to be able to retain all of the employees, or will some be lost in the meantime?
That's a great question. The company had that question posed to them too. What the company did was they laid off the workers during retooling and are going to compensate them for any incremental difference between when they were on an unemployment period to maintain their existing take-home wages until they're recalled and back to work, which optimistically will be this month.
And when did the layoff take place? May
May
1st?
1st.
Okay.
But the way you described it, that didn't sound like it was a layoff. It was two different corporations. One was a rehiring. Is that what it was? Yeah. And so it wasn't. The one company didn't lay anybody off. That company, the Hugo Boss company, did not exist. And the Hart Chapter Remarks under Mr. Ragland was a brand new corporation, I assume. Is it? That is correct. And the unemployment is a result of being paid under the unemployment policies of, I assume, under the Hugo Boss policy.
Right. They're issued, the way I understand it, they were issued loans, which are then forgiven when they come back to work.
Okay. Mr. Greenspan?
Great, thanks. So it's a $4 million project, and I only recall Jobs Ohio was a $400,000 grant. The city was $150,000. What was there? It was non-cash. What was it? Tax abatement or?
Oh, it's a tax rebate. It's cash.
Tax rebate. Income tax, property tax, combination.
Fran?
Good afternoon. I'm Fran Miglerino, Economic Development Director for the City of Brooklyn. We have a program called the Business Retention Creation Grant Program, and we use all of our non-tax revenues, such as our permit fees, et cetera, in order to fund it. I have about $750,000 in that fund. I was able, through my Economic Development Committee, to bring about a $150,000 grant. We have already paid Mr. Ragland is $75,000 out of that $150,000 grant. He will, as he continues his processes, he will get the other $75,000 in 2016. I do want to clarify something for you. What happened is when W. Diamond actually created Keystone Tailored Manufacturing, Keystone Tailored Manufacturing under Ohio unemployment hired all the employees on May 1st. In our commitment, or his commitment to us, he is going to have all those employees back at the shop by the end of August. I gave him a 30-day window. He really wants everybody back on board on August 5th. And obviously, if you run down Tiedemann Road, you can see systematically cars are beginning to come back. The first tranche of union workers, these are all union workers, the first tranche of union workers were actually the cutters. The second tranche will be the sewers. So as you go down Tiedemann Road and look at the facility, you can see more and more cars systematically coming back. So we gave them 30 days. We gave them till September 1st to be fully up and running and employed. And what our loan or our grant actually is doing, they have a plant in Des Moines, Illinois, and a plant in Rochester, New York, and the plants all need to talk to each other via the internet. So what we are doing is we're helping them offset the integration of their computerized system, because I will only do asset-based, just as Cuyahoga County will only do assets. So I just wanted to clarify that for you.
Well, thank you. Are there any conditions of their $150,000?
They have to maintain 172 by September 1st. They have to have 172 employees because, interestingly enough, I thought there were some loyalists to Hugo Boss in the administration level. All the administration has stayed with Mr. Ragland, interestingly enough. So they do not have loyalists for Hugo Boss, and all the union workers and factory workers will be back by September 1st. After that, they have committed to creating another 20 new jobs in the following 3 years. And after that 3-year period, another 10 jobs in the next 2 periods. So we have a 5-year term that they need to fulfill.
And if they fall short in any one of those criteria over the 5 years?
We definitely have a repayment plan in place.
Great, thank you.
Might be on pro rata, but there is a repayment plan in place.
Okay, great, thank you.
And as Mr. Kelly indicated, they plan to do international, not only domestic sales, but international sales.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So this accounts to 550 plus our 650. Where's the balance of the 4 million coming from?
Well, $1.8 million of that is coming from the proceeds of a sale of the building. But they're not interested in ownership of the building. They're going to sell that building eventually. So that's going to come into the project. And then they're putting $1 million in equity. And $400,000 from M&B Financial Bank.
The building they're selling obviously is not the building that's our collateral.
Now, to be clarified on that, our collateral will be first lien on the equipment.
The equipment. Mm-hmm. And what's the value of that equipment?
Well, the value on the equipment is excess of $1.5 million.
In today's dollars?
Yes.
Is that net book value?
I wouldn't say yes.
And how does that equipment depreciate?
I'm not certain on that question, but I certainly can find that out for you.
Mr. Tron, do you, maybe not specific to...
Well, that really comes down to a tax. If you mean obsolete, the obsolescence of the equipment, or in regards to the
let's put it this way.
depreciation?
This is a 7-year loan. You said the value of the collateral was $1 million, $1.5 million. Will at any point over the next 7 years, I'll just boil it down. You're right, Mr. Schrein, net book value is typically a tax or
Right, that's a tax issue, not an obsolescence issue.
At what point does that value, that 1.5 million, go below the 650,000 of our collateral, of our loan?
I'm not certain on that.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
I mean, I'd venture to say that's not a lot of spread between 1.5 and 650,000 over 7 years. Even if you straight line it over, I just don't. I'm just asking if you can find that out.
I can find that out.
That would be helpful. Are we in first position alone?
We're in first position alone on the equipment.
And is it the intent that we will stay
Yes.
the only collateral, only lien holder against that?
That will be written in the loan agreement.
It will be. It's not as of now.
Well, no, we haven't done the loan agreement yet.
Okay.
So as close of the project of the deal, we will write that in as first lien.
The 30% that's forgivable. Can you just elaborate on what makes it forgivable? What terms do we have? And is it forgivable at the end of 7 years, or is it a pro rata forgiveness?
Pro rata over the 7-year period.
So it's about 4% a year.
Yes.
Over 7 years.
Roughly
Then
about $27,000 a year.
what are the terms that must be maintained in order for it to be forgivable?
Well, one thing is the jobs creation.
And so I see where it says they have to create 40 new jobs over the next 3. So their baseline is 181, then they have to create another 40 over the next 3 years.
What we'll do is each year we'll go out and look at their payrolls
So
to verify that.
So if in the first 3 years it's a $27,000 per year forgivable amount, but yet they're not held accountable in the first 3 years to create those 40 new jobs, they just have to create 40 over the first 3.
Well, the good thing about this particular project, we looked at this project as also as retention as well, in addition to the creation piece. So
right, but what I'm getting, it's fine. So if you're saying to them you must maintain 181,
yes,
plus
the 40 jobs,
but those 40 jobs that kicker doesn't kick in until year 4. Effectively, you have to prove that you've created 40 jobs over the first 3 years, yet you're giving them a forgivable component for the first 3 years, right?
Right.
Mr. Kelly, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, they pay principal and interest on the whole amount of loan until some portion of that is forgiven. And that doesn't happen until, in most instances, the end of the term, because they have to be able to not only create the jobs but maintain them. And then I'm not sure correct me if I'm wrong, Arnold, but do we also have the buying local provisions, or is that just in the construction, when we have construction collateral?
Oh, that was just mostly in the construction class.
So it's the job creation pieces that
the job
are the
creation
requirements.
Okay, so then as I understand the way the 30% forgivable component effectively is tacked on at the end. So they're going to pay the interest on 100% of the principal for the 7 years, and then are you saying then at year 7, if there's any forgivable component, then obviously the interest won't be the interest and principal for that component will not be paid back. I guess they'll get a credit on their last payment. Is this a balloon payment on the principal? They're paying principal and interest every year?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand the mechanism to understand how the 30% forgivable over the first 3 years works, since the criteria of creating new jobs, they're effectively giving a 3-year grace period, right? The first 3 years, they don't have to create, they technically, all they have to do in the first 3 years is retain 181 jobs, and at the last day, I'll just make this overly dramatic, but the last day of the 3rd year, they have to hire 40 more people in order to be eligible for the
There you go. Yes.
30%.
Yeah.
But during that first 3 years, are they making principal and interest payments based on what?
On the principal, on the outstanding balance of the 650.
And then you'll make good somehow a provision that they'll be then eligible for the forgiveness of that 30% at that point?
That is correct.
And Mr. Kelly, did you say that the full 650 the full principal will last through the term of the 7 years, even if the 30% is earned, or at 4 years and a day, or the 30% is forgiven, so the principal then is reduced by the 30%?
Their payments are based on their principal and interest that's outstanding. If they were to create and maintain the jobs on day 1, that P&I gets reduced because the principal reduces. If they do it at the end of 3 years, where they hit those job numbers, then the principal reduces. I'm getting a look from Arnold to make sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So the way you said it the second time,
It's
consistent.
Okay. I don't have any other. So in this, the city, county, and state are all participating in this.
That is correct.
As I understand it. Okay. And is the Jobs Ohio, that's a grant, 100% right off the bat?
Job creation tax credit.
Okay, great. Oh, it's a tax credit, so it's not cash.
It is, well, it is as good as cash. It's because it can be a reimbursement if they don't have a tax burden.
Okay. Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Others? Well, I guess I will differ with my colleague on the far right. We don't ordinarily, but I don't think that all you have to do is the word that I would describe doing to retain 170 jobs of a business that I thought 5 years ago when I read the Hugo Boss story, we were lucky to keep those jobs even for that 5-year interim. But for somebody to be stepping forward and making clothing in Cleveland, Ohio, with unionized labor when the rest of the world is saying we'll never make clothing in the United States again, I'm just overly impressed with the ability to deliver 170 jobs. That is not an easy thing to do in a business that is dog eat dog out there as far as clothing and competition. I'm just shocked that Mr. Ragland is willing to take on this kind of exposure, and I think it's fantastic. I hope they display their brand. Do you know what stores they're going to be going into? Because I have my desire to support and find out and travel that. Do you know?
Nordstrom's?
Yeah, I figure it's always the high-end stores usually.
Dillard's.
But it'll be the Nordstroms and Dillards and, okay.
And their own small retail operation.
Yeah, I understand but I was,
So come to Tiedemann Road in Brooklyn and buy your suit, Jack.
I spent 25 years on Tiedemann Road. That's where my reserve center was located. So, yeah, and I just think that if you do a dollar cost on this, because I look at those 170 jobs really as job creation, because for a company that had closed, it is not just retention of jobs, because it's a brand new business going in there, starting all over again. It's not like this business was thinking about moving someplace else. This business had folded, and it was going out of business. So So I'm extremely impressed. I am thrilled that this is how the county is using this to invest. I think it's a very worthwhile, and at $1 cost per job, this has got to be one of the lowest cost per dollar per job of any of the programs I think you brought to this committee. Yes, Ms. Simon.
Thank you. So part of this loan is for building improvements?
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's for the machinery and equipment that goes into the building.
So legislation says it assists in funding and building improvements.
This modernization of the building equipment, the equipment that's going to be in the building.
Just the equipment, not the physical structure. Because I heard you say, I thought that they're not intending to stay in that building. Did I hear you say that?
There was going to be a sale leaseback on the building.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they're going to.
They're staying in the building.
They'll
physically stay in the same building. They just won't own the building.
And they're selling the building to themselves.
Yeah. My assumption is Mr. Ragland might end up owning the building before it's all said and done.
So,
just my guess.
So they're expanding. Where are they manufacturing now, currently?
Chicago.
All in Chicago? Mm-hmm. So it's expanding their line and promoting some exports?
Yes, they reached their capacity in Chicago, and they really want to expand it, and this particular facility fits their needs perfectly.
Great, yeah. Turnkey, almost, with employees.
This is phenomenal. It really is. Because ordinarily, clothing manufacturers, if you follow the brands on your shirts and your shoes, you'll probably find they're being made overseas. And so this is fantastic when you got a company willing to take the step. And as far as Mr. Greenspan was asking some great questions in regards to the machinery equipment, if it's CNC equipment, it will not lose value below the $650,000. I would predict in that 7-year length of time below that value. As a matter of fact, it probably depreciation-wise, book-wise, that's one thing. But as far as being able to sell it, I'm sure that they will have that value will be retained out there. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Germana. What size are you? A 38 regular?
Well, you know, what I'm wondering now that I've had a time to digest this. What's the age of those current employees? There's got to be a lot of them that are up in age, and to get new, so that there's got to be some turnover, and are they going to be recruiting? I'm just wondering where they're going to get these workers from, because not too many people.
One of the things that I have done is put them in touch.
Because we're being broadcast.
Okay. One of the things that I have done is put them in touch with Polaris Career Services Center. They may be building a curriculum for them. When Mr. Ragland looks for a sewer, a cutter, to actually manufacture these suits, what happens, it takes him about $1.3 million. He'll call 8 people in, and if he's lucky, he'll get 2 that actually can produce the product and the quality that he cares for. So a couple of things that are occurring. Not only have I contacted Polaris Career Center, which is Cuyahoga County, but Sherrod Brown has also contacted Kent State University to try and garnish a new curriculum for this particular industry. Because, as Mr. Schron said, we have very limited clothing manufacturers in the United States at all anymore. So this is the way that they will try and recruit and try and train some of their employees. The average age, I'm just going to give you an eyeball, is probably 47 to 54. He has one gentleman that is actually 78 years old and is still running a machine in Des Moines, Illinois, because it's an art. And that's why, as Mr. Kelly indicated, he went over and beyond and above. To me, this is an extraordinary company. When they laid everybody off, put them on unemployment, they actually supplemented their payroll and their paycheck so that they were equal the day that they were laid off. So I've never heard of a company doing that in my entire lifetime. And I've been in public service for almost 25 years. Never heard of it. So, but to get back to the training, we're working with Kent, we're working with Polaris, We're going to try and build some curriculum around this industry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fran.
I heard of one in Collinwood that did that once too.
Really?
Really. Any other questions or comments in regards to it?
Mr. Chair, we're ready to go to contracting phase if council is interested in passing this on second reading.
Is there any idea when Mr. Ragland will be back? Because I'd love to have him get public recognition for this too, if at all possible. Our next meeting is a week from Tuesday.
And he'll be in town next week.
Is there any possibility you could get him to attend?
I think it's the day after I think it's Wednesday and Thursday that he's in town, because we're trying to schedule it for maybe an 11th committee.
Okay. Well, seeing how we've got real employees that are trying to get back to work and everything like that, I see no reason to hold this up. Does anybody have any objection to going for a second reading? Okay. It's been right.
Mr. Chairman, I move for a second reading suspension.
It's been moved. Mr. Jumana, anybody on second? If not, I'll second. Thank you, Ms. Simon. Any other discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Congratulations. I think it's a great project. Do you know when they're going to actually do any public announcements out there as far as the event itself? Because I think it's the media.
I'm going to follow up with Ken and follow up with you today.
Yeah. But it's one I'd like to. I don't know really. I'd like to attend stuff like that, but that'd be one I'd love to if I'm in the area. Thanks.
Okay.
Second item.
Resolution 2015-0151, authorizing an amendment to a contract with Economic and Community Development Institute for management of the Cuyahoga County Microenterprise Revolving Loan Fund to extend the time period to 1/31/2017 and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $2 million.
Is everybody here to speak on this? It looks like Mr. Kelly.
Sure are. We've got quite a group today for you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, in 2013, this committee and then subsequently County Council approved a contract for $550,000 to ECDI for the work that they do to help provide technical recruitment, technical assistance, and ultimately funding for microenterprises. Microenterprises is a program that is particularly effective in recruiting MBEs and FBEs to bring their small business that's already established or is in that ideation stage to scale, where they usually, one, create a successful business, and then two, oftentimes add a couple of employees. Over the past year or so, that program has been very successful, and our colleagues Eric Diamond and Greg Zuka are here to talk about what they've done with that first amount. Before you today is an extension and expansion of that agreement, where they continue to administer this program under the parameters that I just described. The two gentlemen that are here today will go into great detail about that. But so far, with just that first $500,000, I can tell you that they closed 42 loans on behalf of the county and ECDI and provided over 2,000 hours of technical assistance. That resulted in about 78 jobs created, and I think significantly, more than 50% were minority-owned businesses, and greater than 60% were female-owned businesses. This work also leverages investments from private bankers and also funders like the Cleveland Foundation. So the results speak for themselves, but at the direction of the chair and committee, I'd like the principals from ECDI to speak for themselves instead.
Thank you, Nate. My name is Greg Zuka. I'm the Vice President of Lending and Lending Operations for ECDI.
And I'm Eric Diamond, Executive Vice President of Lending for ECDI.
So what we wanted to do today was just kind of give you a little bit of background about ECDI, who we are, what we do, and some of our successes that we've had to date in Cuyahoga County. ECDI, we have 4 main offices. Our headquarters is in Columbus. We have offices in Cleveland, Akron, and Toledo. The organization was founded in 2004. Our CEO, Ina Kinney, was one of the first refugees from the Jewish refugees from the former Soviet Union that was settled into the city of Columbus. She moved to Columbus in 1975, had a very successful career, but during that time she saw how some of her family members had a difficult time starting up a business. So after her corporate career, she started a microloan fund as part of the Jewish Community Federation in Toledo. The program grew very rapidly, and so in 2004 she spun it out and created ECDI. ECDI is a nonprofit economic development organization. We provide education, mentoring, and small business loans to individuals that are looking to expand or start up businesses. And we see this as a way to invest in individuals to help them succeed and to help create jobs and redevelop neighborhoods and communities. We are the third largest micro lender, SBA micro lender in the United States. We have the certification to serve all 88 counties of Ohio. And again, as I said, in the 11 years that we have been operating, we've invested over $25 million to over 5,000 entrepreneurs and helped to create create and retain 4,500 jobs. So essentially what we do is we have four main categories of what we do. We invest, we educate, and innovate. Obviously, investing is our main suite of programs where we're providing microloans to small businesses, Main Street businesses. We also have a small individual development account program where we help individuals do matching. We have grant funds from the federal government to do matching dollars for savings accounts, working with individuals that are in high poverty situations, also working with immigrants and refugees. In education, we have a host of, in addition to the technical assistance that we provide to our borrowers, one-on-one technical assistance, we also have training programs that are geared towards startup businesses and also existing businesses. We just recently rolled out a whole host of training programs in Cleveland beginning in January of this year. They're geared towards a lot of our startup businesses that come to us looking for financing. We help them to build out their business plans, create solid cash projections that help us to underwrite those loans and to mitigate the risk. In addition, we also opened up we also have a SBA Women's Business Center of Ohio. It's the only SBA Women's Business Center in the state. We have a location in Columbus and also here in Cleveland as well. And that program provides one-on-one mentoring and networking opportunities for women-oriented businesses that oftentimes have significant barriers and cultural issues to overcome. So this is a way to help those individuals address those concerns. And then in innovation, we also have a incubator in our building on Euclid and East 30th. It's the Cleveland Culinary Launch Kitchen, and basically it's a commercial kitchen that provides space for entrepreneurs that are in the food-oriented business, caterers, people operating food trucks, individuals that are looking to open up their own introduce their own products into the market and introduce them into local retailers. So this is a low-cost place for them to begin to address that market and get in without putting in a huge capital investment and building out their own commercial-grade kitchen. So it's a way to help them get into the market quicker. We also do some interesting program with other nonprofit organizations in the community. We are participating in the Sea Change program, which stands for Social Enterprise Accelerator. We're partnering with IdeaStream, Launch House, the Small Business Development Center, and also the Hispanic Business Center to run and operate that program with lots of other nonprofit organizations. And essentially, we're trying to target those entrepreneurs that not only want to introduce new products into the market, but are also looking to have a positive impact and benefit to their community and trying to address a particular socioeconomic issue in their community while also having a sustainable business model. So this is an accelerator program that provides mentoring and coaching for that. And then we also partner with a lot of our community development corporations and municipalities to help provide technical assistance and training to entrepreneurs and small businesses, Main Street businesses. This is a quick, eye chart, I guess, if you can see it. So this basically is just kind of the underwriting criteria or the loan criteria that we operate with. Basically, our loan sizes is anywhere from $500 up to $350,000, but typically our loan size is around $25,000. And basically, we're providing loans to those small businesses that, for one reason or another, aren't bankable. They're because of maybe insufficient cash flow, collateral, credit score, or it might be an industry that banks aren't participating in. Typically, it's restaurants and retail. And basically, we partner with with the financial institutions to provide the financing that they're not quite able to provide. So we have a very strong referral relationship with all the regional banks in Cleveland that partner with us regularly, on a regular basis. Recently, we just closed, and they also provide us loan capital dollars as well, so that we can have a larger pool. And that's how we're leveraging the county's dollars with some of those banking partners and foundation partners. This past June, we closed a $1 million line of credit with Citizens Bank. That is helping us provide more capital on the street to these small businesses. Our interest rates are fixed for the term of the loan. Terms are anywhere between 3 to 5 years. We also provide lines of credit, up to $100,000 line of credit. It's a 1-year term that can be renewed up to 3 years to help bridge accounts receivable. We can finance pretty much any legitimate business use. Really, the only thing that we don't finance is the acquisition of real estate or construction. But working capital, leasehold improvements, equipment, inventory, we can help to finance all these things. We only provide financing to for-profit entities. We don't have the ability to provide nonprofit funding. So a little bit of background on our relationship with the county. In 2011, there was a study funded by the Cleveland Foundation by Friedman and Associates, which identified that there was a gap of $38 million in lending to Main Street small business entrepreneurs. And it was several partners that came together, the city, the county, the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland, some banking partners, and the Cleveland Foundation that came together to really wanted to address this gap in the market. And through their leadership, they met with ECDI and enticed them to locate and open up an office in Cleveland to help to address that market. They saw the success that ECDI was having in Columbus and wanted to bring that model to Cleveland. In 2012, the office opened, and shortly thereafter, the county participated with other funders and provided ECDI with a $550,000 contract. And we provided $456,000 in lending capital to these small businesses. It provided access to capital, it helped to create jobs, and it provided a great deal of technical assistance. Again, I kind of covered some of the eligible borrowers, but really it's any Main Street small business that we can provide funding to. So these are some of our preliminary data, just kind of update some of the numbers that Nate had mentioned. To date, since we've opened up in the Cleveland market in 2012, we've provided over $5 million in lending to over 127 businesses. As you can see, the majority of that is to Cuyahoga County-based businesses. We've done over $4.3 million in lending to over 100 businesses in Cuyahoga County. The county's funds have helped to leverage a 3-to-1 leverage. So the $1.5 million that we have provided in funds have been partnered with county dollars. The way that we structure our loans is that there's no one funding source for any one particular loan. We spread the risk and leverage several sources. So in a $100,000 loan, we're using Cuyahoga County funds, SBA dollars, and also possibly bank dollars in one deal. So one borrower will potentially have 3 notes. But this is a way, again, for us to stretch our dollars, leverage our dollars, and get a bigger bang for the buck for the county and for our other funders as well. So the county's $456,000 loan helped to leverage $1.5 million. This is a graphical representation, kind of gives you a sense of the spread of where our small businesses are located. This needs to be updated with some of the new numbers I just mentioned. But essentially, you could see that we are funding businesses throughout the county, primarily centered in the central city and also the inner ring suburbs. But we are providing funds throughout the county. And we've been developing great relationships with the municipalities. We actually just had a really great meeting with Director Kraus with the regional collaboration to look at ways that we can have some follow-on meetings with some of the municipal ED directors and mayors and managers. And so just want to kind of give some of the spotlight of some of the businesses we've funded to date. Eric, you want to kind of give some?
So a couple spotlights here. We've got Harness Cycle. Ann Harnett was a real enthusiast for bicycling. She created kind of a spinning workout, had gone to a bank to get a loan to kind of get her idea off the ground. Was turned down because it was a startup business with little collateral besides the bikes. We were able to get her in the business. She's been in business now for just over a year. It's done incredibly well, so much so that she's looking for a space to double her size. So she's doing quite well. Is this one? Byron Jackson, Dr. Byron Jackson and his wife, Ashley Jackson, they are chiropractors. They actually came to us for the same reason. They had gone to a bank in town, had been turned down. They had great credit scores, but they had a lot of student loan debt, and which made the banks nervous. We were able to get Dr. Jackson and his wife a loan for $25,000 to get them up and running for their chiropractic healing practice. They specialize in kind of joint misalignment in the spine and other places of the body. He's also a published author, and he's doing incredibly well right now, also looking to expand services. Clark Pope Catering, as we mentioned before, we have the CCLK, Cleveland Culinary Launch Kitchen. As part of that project, 3 times a year, we take 10 companies that we think would be pretty innovative food-based businesses. Clark was one of the very first 10 that we took through this program. It's a 9-week program to teach them everything there is to know about owning a food-based business. Clark at the time was a school teacher in Shaker Heights. He taught history. And after going through the program, he decided to take a year off and try his hand at selling his spice mixes and his hot sauces, as well as his Bloody Mary mix. He did incredibly well. He was able to get into Market District. He's now in 3 different states selling his product. Did well his first year, but first 6 months of this year already tripled what he did last year. So he's doing incredibly well. And then Kafaya Mohammed, Kafaya's Kitchen on West 117th in Cleveland. She was a refugee from Somalia. She came here and opened up a kitchen specializing in Somalian food. It's a wonderful, wonderful product that she serves, all fresh, all made right there. And we have a department that specializes in refugee-based businesses. Rebecca Mayhew from our office happened to stop in. They got to talking. We were able to help her put some new signage on the building, as well as replace her hood, which was in desperate need of repair. And then we, to get the kind of the word out, we did a lunch mob at her place. Over 100 people showed up for lunch that day, and she's been doubling her revenue ever since, doing incredibly well. The issue with her was she was unused to the banking system in the United States. She didn't have a credit score. And when we first met her, she didn't even have a bank account. She was going home every night with the cash in a bag and bringing it back in the morning. So Rebecca helped her get her first banking account open. It was we still have a picture in our office of her opening the account. So those are the kind of things that we do. $10,000 made a tremendous difference in this woman's life.
So this is just a list again of some of the business that we've funded to date. Again, as I said, with the Cuyahoga County's funds, we've funded 38 businesses in the county with your funds that have helped these businesses to start, grow, and expand. We work with several partners. We've mentioned the Culinary Kitchen. the incubator program. We're also partnering with other national organizations like Sam Adams Brew the American Dream. We just had a speed coaching event this past July to help food-oriented businesses and beverage businesses to help them grow and to get them the assistance that they need and to get them access to the capital that they need. I mentioned the Sea Change event where we're trying to partner with other organizations to look at those individuals that want to create social enterprises that, while they're doing good, they're also generating a little bit of revenue that they can live on and sustain their organization and not live off of grant dollars, but be able to provide their own source of revenue to operate their organization. And then working with a lot of the community development corporations and other grant funders to do new and innovative programming for entrepreneurs. We did a program with the Old Brooklyn Community Development Corporation. We did a business planning competition with some grant dollars from Huntington Bank. We helped provide the training and technical assistance to the entrepreneurs. Old Brooklyn CDC provided a panel that did a review of those business plans and then selected finalists where they actually had space for them to go and locate into and provided some rent-free subsidy for a period of time. We're doing something very similar in St. Clair Superior neighborhood, partnering with that CDC. This is a little bit different, but we're doing a triage program where we're working with select businesses that they have identified that they'd like to see grow. We're providing one-on-one technical assistance, working with our partners, the Cleveland Business Advisors, to help provide that one-on-one assistance. And then we're just starting to get off with the city of Shaker Heights in a very similar program where we're starting to roll that out through that city. So, this gives you a good sense of a lot of the programs that we do. It's not just lending, but it's also providing a lot of assistance and partnerships, which are really, really critical. As I think as the executive, pointed out, so many programs have been created to help the high-tech, high-growth entrepreneurs. And this is one of those really important programs that helps those Main Street businesses to get the type of assistance and capital that they need to help themselves grow as well. Because these businesses are really the pioneers on those main streets that are helping to redevelop our communities, and they're taking a chance. So it's a program like this and investments from the county that really help them to take that chance.
Questions? Yes, Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One, congratulations on all the hard work you're doing in a very needed area. You mentioned that there are multiple funding sources for your loans. Do you tend to have a bank as one of the components in all of the loans?
No, so not in every single deal. So right now, it really goes on geography as well. So there's certain banks that want to lend in the southern half of the state, others want to lend in this area based on what their CRA credit is. So you may have a bank in there, but maybe 50%, 40% of the time, there's not a bank in there as well.
And I say that because just from my own experience, when the city of Cleveland helped us, they brought one bank into the mix. And as a result of that, we were able to establish a relationship with that bank that continued on with now a private sector institution. But they would not have worked with us had the city of Cleveland not forced their hand, so to speak.
Sure.
But once we were there, then they were comfortable.
Yep. So one thing that we do is we work with most of the banks in town, and we have classes where that individual bank will sponsor the class to get to know the clients so that they are developing that relationship. A lot of the banks refer us deals, and so as soon as they're bankable, the client becomes bankable, we'll refer them back to that bank. And now we're starting to see that track record, having been here 3 years. Banks are looking at them saying, okay, we know who ECDI is, we understand the training that they've received. So we've had probably 4 or 5 deals already in this short period of time go on to become bankable because of those types of programs.
What has been your track record of success? Or you shared a lot with us.
Sure.
But have you had any
defaults? Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Defaults.
So an average microlender has about a 15% default rate. ECDI as a whole has been roughly around 5%. This market is around 3.5% to 4.5% as well. Quite frankly, I'll tell you, it's a little low, right? So we'd like to see up to maybe 8% default rate, so that you're out there making sure that you're taking the risks. In this market, it's been a little easier because there was such a pent-up demand when we got to the market that a lot of the first deals we saw were just these near bank misses. But we're always balancing that. What's the risk in the portfolio? What's our delinquency rate? What do we need to put on at those near bank misses so that we could take greater risk on the kind of smaller $25,000 and under deals?
Other questions? Mr. Miller? Mr. Greenspan, do you have a question too? Okay.
I also have a question for Mr. Kelly. And the question is whether there was any procurement process for the, or did we just decide to amend the existing agreement without there being a procurement process?
In 2013, we went through an RFP process. ECDI won this. The ECDI has a certain certification called a CDFI. That's very limited. I don't know if there's another one in the Cleveland area, or there's one coming, but it hasn't gotten established, and I think that'll happen soon. So it was our prescription that the best way would be to amend the existing agreement to bring it to this stage.
And what's the funding source for the $2 million?
Funding source would be the budgeted amount for economic development for this year's budget. We don't anticipate spending all $2 million this year. This is over, the $2 million is the contract period. So we would see this to be budgeted in the $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 range for 2015.
And is it budgeted in the department's line, or is it budgeted as a reserve on balance?
It's part of the budgeted departmental lines.
Okay. And to Mr. Zuka, can you tell us how many different kind of businesses you've supported through the SEA Accelerator, and what kind of businesses have been?
Yeah, Sea Change. Actually, Eric will.
Sure, so I'll take that one. So Sea Change started a year ago, and we had what we called Second Fridays. They were 2 Fridays in a row where individuals showed up. We had over 400 people come to learn about what social enterprise is. We had 75 applicants go online and fill out the application. We vetted them down to 13 companies. We took those 13 companies through an accelerator and a pitch program, and this past March we awarded $60,000 to 4 companies. One of them was Mansfield Fraser's project, Chateau Huff. Another one was Rust Belt Riders. They do pickup of waste from restaurants and turn it into compost. The third business was Upcycle in St. Clair Superior. They take junk basically and do art programs for children as well as art that they sell. And then the fourth company was called Modern Good, and they do t-shirts for nonprofit fundraising. So they're doing one right now with the food bank. The shirt says the best meals are shared, and when you buy this shirt it feeds 10 families in Cleveland. So those were the first 4. We just started our second phase right now. The application is open, so in September we'll pick the individuals that will go through the next phase.
And is the 60,000, is it that much per, or is it the total of 4 times 15?
So it was divided. So the top prize was 25,000, and then the lowest was 5, and the other 2 split the remaining. That money comes from the Business of Good, Burton D. Morgan, and the Gunn Foundation. They've committed for 5 years to fund that pool to do the social enterprise work.
And once the initial funding runs out, how do the businesses achieve sustainability?
So that is the whole part of the program is if it wasn't a sustainable model, if we didn't think it could be a sustainable model, they weren't chosen to be in the accelerator. So we didn't want to just create nonprofits that have to rely on fundraising to continue their efforts. So these all we believe will be businesses. Once winning the program, those 4 are given mentors that will stay with them over the next 18 months, check in monthly to make sure that they're on track.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Mr. Greenspan, I think you're back on the mic, Mr. Kelly.
Great, thank you. Actually, Mr. Miller asked one of my questions regarding the funding source. I have in front of me the budget that was submitted, or the projections for the rest of the year. And I didn't see, so I guess it's going to be a show me later, present to us later documentation, but in the development's budget, I didn't see the capacity for this loan in the current budget, because there's only 2.7 million, I believe, is the budgeted amount for development.
The budgeted amount is 15, maybe it's 14 and change for the year, and we anticipated 12.1 or 12.2 as part of the forecast. This is included among that 12.1 or 12.2.
So then that's the number that's sitting in the reserves, the economic development component that's in the reserve line, which in this last set of financial statements was about $13 million. But keep in mind, are they two different buckets?
Two different buckets. There's one in our operational budget that is the 14 and change. There's a similar amount that is the total of the economic development reserves, which would include things like the Schofield building or the $8 million Western Reserve Fund payment. This is not in those reserves. It would be in the operational portion.
Okay, all right. And is that the same funding source as the previous item?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just so we're clear, and you might, right now, as I understand the way should have been, and now we're currently going to be recording these items. If it's your intent that this $2 million is to be spread out over $400,000 over 5 years, you may wish to amend the legislation, because right now, according to the way we're recording this, we're going to have to reserve this full $2 million immediately.
Okay, I'll make sure that that's addressed with our fiscal team.
Yeah, make sure that if your intent is $400 a year for 5 years, then let's make sure the legislation states that so it can be encumbered appropriately. Otherwise, the full $2 million will need to be encumbered immediately.
Understood.
Other questions? Did I understand 38 loans? Was that the number of companies you had there? Does that represent the number of loans that you are engaged with?
That represents the number of businesses that received funding from the proceeds of the Cuyahoga County dollars.
Okay.
So total, though, in Cuyahoga County, we've done over 100 businesses. We've funded over 100 businesses.
And your 5% as far as bad debt or default in regards to that, is that 5% what your target would be out of our 38, or is that out of the 100 mix?
Out of the 100 mix, yeah.
Okay.
Out of the total
Did
portfolio.
we have any out of your 38 that were using county dollars that have already gone to a failure on the loan at this point?
I believe there are 2 companies that currently are in a default situation.
So off that list that you just showed us, two would be in a default?
Correct.
Okay. We'll ask that off the record later on. Then security. What are you folks taking in regards to security of those with our county dollars?
So we try to collateralize the loan, try to get to a 1-to-1 ratio as best as possible. We're very creative in the collateral that we're taking. Obviously, in terms of when it's an equipment loan, it's a little bit more easier to do because we're taking the collateral on the equipment that we're purchasing. We take a first position on all of our collateral, but sometimes we do have to get creative. And we will take automobiles, and we will take position on real estate assets as well to try to get to that point where those dollars are being, those fund dollars are being protected. In certain circumstances, we're even taking jewelry in certain instances. So we're creative in trying to get to that, because ultimately we're trying to be flexible and making sure that we're funding these entrepreneurs, but doing it in a way that is prudent and not just handing out loan dollars.
Personal guarantees?
Yes. Everything's personally guaranteed. One other thing that I'll add is on deals that are under collateralized, we can access the collateral enhancement program through the state of Ohio. We're the only CDFI that's allowed to do that, and they will give us a 30% guarantee of the loan if it qualifies. So we've used that program quite extensively. Also, I will mention about collateral. Of those 2 deals that did default, one is we'll get 100% recovery from the sale of the collateral. So we didn't lose any money in that deal.
So essentially, when the state of Ohio is stepping up and giving you a 30%, they're actually putting more money on the table than what's actually showing up on on any contribution they might make, because they're taking a risk of an additional 30%.
Correct.
Is anything in our loan that we're looking at here doing the same thing? Or are we taking that same tact that the state of Ohio is, in that if we don't find collateral, that we're stepping up and doing to extend beyond that?
There are examples where we provide a contingency to council, but in our current state, we don't have a standard program that wouldn't have collateral.
No, but in today's conversation with ECDI, is there anything that I think Eric said that if the collateral is at $1 and they need to have $1.30, the state of Ohio is stepping up with a guarantee for an additional 30%. Are we stepping up to do anything beyond the dollars you're asking for?
No, sir.
In other words, is there a contingency that's not showing up in our conversation right today?
No, sir.
Okay. And it sounds like your social enterprise 4 projects are just phenomenal. It sounds like a great way to go about things out there. Any other questions, comments? Yes, Mr. Jones?
Yes. You mentioned the Cleveland Foundation was leveraged. To what dollar amount? What have they contributed?
So the Cleveland Foundation, they've been doing $400,000 a year for the last 3 years. This year, they're made a commitment for $187,000. We had told them coming in that we would need support for 3 years, and then after that we could taper down their support.
And of the dollars that we already have working, how many jobs have been created by the actual jobs or dollars that we've got working right now? And then the follow-on is, how many jobs do you anticipate as a result of this?
So for those 38 businesses that have received a portion of county funds, they've created 109 jobs, and approximately 50% of those are low to moderate income jobs. And this new new funding source, we're anticipating that, roughly that for every $35,000 that we're providing in financing, that we will be creating 1 new job.
Okay, so you're not quite as attractive as the last presentation as far as okay. Other questions, comments?
Still one more.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. I apologize. I thought you were done.
All right.
Yeah, go, Mr. Jones.
You mentioned also that you partner with the community development corporations as well. Describe those partnerships. I think you said technical support, or maybe you can explain
Sure.
a little more.
So it's formal and informal. Informally, we work very closely with Cleveland Neighborhood Progress. They have monthly meetings with the economic development professionals in each of the CDCs. We attend those meetings periodically. Again, you have to continue to maintain relationships with individuals in the economic development world to make sure that any projects that are coming to light, if there's a way that we can help, we can provide some assistance for capital and things of that nature. And then on a more formal basis, some of the business plan competitions that we do, we look as some of these CDCs go after grant funds from various different federal agencies or foundations. Sometimes they're looking to do creative economic development, place-based projects where there is an economic development piece of providing capital, and we will partner with them on those instances. One example is Union Miles. They submitted an application to doing some economic development place-based in their community, and we are partnering with them to provide assistance to those small businesses.
Thank you.
Thanks. Other questions? You indicated that your default rate, but some of these loans would not have gone into default irrespective of what their timing was based on how long they've been out there working. How many are at risk of that you would see that you get the warning signs that things maybe are not looking as good as we'd like to see at this point in time in any of the action loans?
Sure. So all of our deals are risk rated between 1 and 10 at the time of underwriting.
Right.
So 1 to 6 is a pass credit, 7 through 10 is a credit at risk. What happens is the RMs meet with the customers once a month to look at their projections based against the actuals. And if there's negative trends, we bring in a person from our SAD department, Special Asset Division. This individual, he spent his career doing turnaround type consulting. So he comes in, and a lot of those he's able to get back on track or restructure the loan. So right now, if you look at our portfolio, I think we've got about 12% in what we call our watch category. Now that doesn't mean that they'll go bad, but just certain things, economic climate, et cetera, we've put them on watch. We have probably less than 3% of what we in the portfolio right now that we think is eminent to be charged off.
Okay, so the 3 plus 12 is 15 the way I look at it, so therefore you might already be at your more aggressive target that you were anticipating as far as increasing your risk. You might have already doubled what your risk is if those at watch and your 3% risk. So
yeah, but it's a very conservative.
Be very careful.
Yeah, I understand.
With our money.
Yeah, very understand.
Yes, John.
You showed a chart that broke down the loans across the county and actually did it per district. Are you able to give us a breakdown of which of those businesses are in our respective districts?
Yeah, we can get that.
I'd like to see that.
Most definitely.
Good. That'd be great.
One last question.
Sure.
As you partner with banks and other institutions for funding sources, have you had any conversations around some of the local CDFIs, the credit unions in the community as potential partners?
Yeah, so that is a strategy that we're looking at this year. Ian Kinney, is our CEO, she's going to spend this year on development, and that's one of the things looking at credit unions as well as small community banks. In the past, CDFIs weren't allowed to have their accounts at credit unions, but the SBA has changed that, so now we can begin targeting them as well.
Great.
Other questions? I think Mr. Miller had actually opened up what was the competitive process for this out there and indicated there was not another bidder. Is that that put forth a proposal?
We didn't renew the RFP from 2013.
We did not?
No, we did the RFP in 2013 and continued that contract.
Okay. And so there was not a competition for this round that we're talking about?
Correct.
But as I think Mr. Zucco referred to, perhaps there's a competitor that's starting to show up on the based on your success?
I'll take that one. So the Jumpstart is creating a CDFI to do lending as well, but they're going to target deals $250,000 to $1 million. So it's more of a continuation of what we're doing. So once they kind of get too big for us, we can still have them referred to someone else before, if they're still not bankable.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Miller?
Was there an exemption passed by the Board of Control on this item?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none. And they didn't hear any agencies of the circumstances, so
we're ready to go to contract whenever.
We'll take it in for the normal course for the second reading and then third after that. So is there a motion to move this to the full council?
So moved.
Is there a move? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Hearing no opposed. Thank you very much. Good luck. And there's no other items in regards to it. Is there any miscellaneous business somebody wishes to bring before? Hearing none. Is there any public comment that would be unrelated to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair.
Hearing none, I hereby adjourn the meeting. Thank you.